Well, hello everybody. Again, sorry, this is take two. I don't know what happened. Like the internet just crapped out on me for a second. So I'm going to start again from the beginning. Hello, how are you? Happy Monday. My name is Scott Pinyard. I'm the head coach here at This Naked Mind, and I am live now, as I am most Mondays at 4 p.m. Eastern, to answer your questions, to talk about you, to talk about what's going on with you, and to talk about things I see people discussing. Talk about this journey that is changing our relationship with alcohol. So I am going to be diving into that, and I encourage you to ask me questions. Ask me questions in the chat. Ask me questions about the journey, about yourself, about me. I'll answer anything. I'm here. I'm here to answer questions for you. And I also want to talk about honesty. In particular, I want to talk about honesty with ourselves. One of the things that can hold us back so much in this journey is a lack of honesty, is this idea of like, man, I don't know. Am I justifying how I'm drinking, even though we have this little niggling thought in the back of our mind? I'm going to get to that in just 1 second. And I'd love to answer your questions about that too. So again, use the chat, say hello, make sure I know you're watching. I always like to, just double check. Hopefully someone says at least hi in just a moment, because that makes sure that the comments are working, because sometimes they don't here on Facebook. But anyway, so hopefully I'll see some comments soon. But before I dive into today's topic, I want to ask you to do me a favor and download the This Naked Mind companion app. And the reason it's doing me a favor is I want you to have access to so much more. So this is a completely free app with a ton of content, with a ton of information on there, with a ton of ways that you can connect with each other, have an amazing conversation, and do it in a place that's private just for us. This is 100% free. So you can download the app in the App Store, or you can go to thisnakedmindapp.com and sign up there as well. This is incredible. I mean, this is a space just for us. It's a space that makes a huge, massive difference in, as you guys know, being able to connect with other people who are going through the same thing that you're going through. It is incredible. So again, it's thisnakedmindapp.com. Head on over there. You can get signed up for it. I still don't see comments, so I hope that this is working. But either way, go check out the app. It's amazing. This is one of the reasons, right? Like this not working and being weird. We don't have that problem over there. We go. Jim, thank you, Jim. You saved me. Now I see some comments. I can feel comfortable that it's working. So let me dive into what I want to talk about today. And again, I want to encourage you as we go through this whole time, please ask me comments. I'm here, or ask me comments, ask me questions. I'm here to answer them. Hey, Cindy, how's it going? Allie, you bet. Like, we're really excited about it. Tony says it's working. Great. Awesome. So honesty. And, I thought a lot about this. I've been thinking about this a lot over the weekend, because I've been reflecting, on my journey, and like, where are the points, where are the sticking points, where are the places that, I want to communicate things. And this has always been one, this idea of honesty with myself about where I was with alcohol, about how it was affecting my life. Honesty is a thing that held me back for a very long time. There was so much time in my journey where I just was not honest, right? I would tell myself things like, everyone drinks this much, right? While I would be finishing a bottle of scotch a night. Or I'd say something like, you know what, this is temporary. It's whatever, I'm stressed right now over this or over that, or, I can quit whenever I want, or it's not that bad. Tell me in the comments if you know what I mean. Like, if you've done this as well, right? Like, this is something that we do to justify the idea of drinking, right? To justify the idea of like, well, no, it's not really that bad. It's okay, right? We make these excuses. And the thing is that while sometimes I would believe this for myself, I knew, like, if I'm honest right now and I look back over my journey, like, I knew there was this little niggling thought in the back of my mind that was like, dude, what you're saying is BS. Like, dude, what you're saying just isn't super true, right? And I knew it, and I knew that something had to change, but I was still justifying, right? And this is something that we all do, right? We all do this on this journey. And, what it leads to is us living in like complete cognitive dissonance, right? I knew what I was telling myself wasn't true. And the noise in my head would get really intense. And then what would I do when that noise in my head got intense, right? I would drink, right? I would drink. And this was incredibly difficult for me. Because on one hand, it felt like I had these justifications, and if I just believed them hard enough, I don't have to do this. But on the other hand, I knew that something had to change. And then because of this cognitive dissonance, I would drink more. And that's the real kicker, isn't it? Like the very thing that I was trying to stop doing, the thing that I was worried about having to stop doing, made me feel like I needed to do it more because of how I felt, right? It made me feel incredibly stuck. It made me feel like my life was just going to stay the way it had been. And so like, if I just can justify enough and drink to feel better, then man, maybe something doesn't have to change. But wait, no, something does have to change. Right? I'm sure you guys know what I mean. Allie knows what I mean. Yeah, I'd love to hear from more of you. Like, have you been in this situation before? So I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about, well, why do we do this? Right? Like, why do we as humans do this when some part of us knows, wow, something has to give, right? Something has to shift. And, it can happen at various times on a journey. It can happen just randomly if you have a particularly bad morning. But it can also happen if you make an attempt to change your relationship with alcohol and don't get where you want to go, right? We know the truth. So why do we lie to ourselves, especially in these vulnerable moments? That's what I want to dig into on this live. And I'm going to just come right out and say it. Humans do what we do for one reason and one reason only. We do things to feel a certain way. We do things because we feel like it, right? To feel differently, to feel, better than we do right now. And this is a general statement, but it is true across all different types of change and habits and experiences in your life, right? We do what we do to feel a certain way. So if that's the case, why do we keep not being fully honest with ourselves about our drinking, right? If we want to feel a certain way, why lie to ourselves? Like, doesn't that feel bad? And the answer is yes, but it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. Not only do we feel bad about it, but the problem is we're afraid, right? We're afraid of what's on the other side of quitting drinking. We feel so stuck in what we're dealing with, and we feel so stuck by this fear of the unknown that we decide that it feels better to lie to ourselves. You follow me? Right? We decide that it is better to delude ourselves, even with that little niggling voice, right? We feel better. We feel like it's a better idea to ignore those alarm bells that are going off for us because we think it's going to be better to do that than to quit drinking. This boils down to fear. It's fear. This is why we do this, right? Fear is an incredibly powerful motivator. And that's what's at play here, right? Fear about stress, fear about relationships, fear about life, fear about pretty much anything. For so many of us, right, we have no concept of what life is like without alcohol, certainly our adult lives, right? Like, I know that's absolutely the case for me. I lived my grown-up life, and by that I just mean like post-college, drinking for 15 years. I had not had a time period during all of that and all of the changes and all of the things that happened. I had not had a time period where I was alcohol free. So I had no idea what my life was going to be like, right? And so all of these questions flood into our brain. We think, man, maybe I need to change my relationship with alcohol, but like, what about this and what about that, right? What about relationships without alcohol? What about sex without alcohol? What about business dinners and parties and weddings and funerals? Like, how am I possibly going to deal with this? And all of these questions flood our mind with all types of uncertainty. And we don't like uncertainty, right? Us humans, we're not big fans of uncertainty. And so it starts to feel like too much to handle because there's a lot of fear, because we don't know. We are afraid of the unknown. So of course, our natural instinct is to choose the least scary option. Our natural instinct, remember, we do things to feel a certain way. There's a lot of fear on the other side. There's not a lot of fear here. Like, I know that things are bad and I know that things need to change, but like that's scary. So of course we try to do whatever we can to protect ourselves, even if it means doing a thing we don't want to do. So, you know, we find ourselves in this situation where we have these thoughts of like, maybe I need to change, but then the fear, the terror of like what this means when we have to move forward, what this means if we were actually successful, that fear makes us say, nope, that's too much. I'd rather deal with the cognitive dissonance. I'd rather deal with lying to myself. I'd rather deal with knowing that I'm not being honest than facing all of this uncertainty, which scares the hell out of me. So what do we do? Like, if that's the case, is what I'm saying is true, like, how do we get out of this? And I want to give you guys a few things that you can do to move out of this, to move beyond this. And it's really two things. They're simple but not easy. And I want to lay them out for you here. I want to hear what you think about them too. Number one, don't beat yourself up about not being honest. Right now that, hey, Joanna, how's it going? Now that I'm laying this out there for you, you might be looking at your journey and you might be thinking like, oh man, I have done this so many times, right? There's a good chance you were aware of it, but if you weren't, and this is the first time you're like, oh man, I've been justifying, let yourself off the hook, right? Remember, these justifications are your brain trying to protect you. It's your brain trying to do what it thinks is the best for you. This is not meaning that you are broken. It's not meaning that you're diseased, that you're dishonest or deceitful, right? It doesn't mean that there's something morally wrong with you. That used to be what we thought about alcohol used to, sort of, by the way, that it was like a small or poor moral character, right? That used to be the case, but that is not what we know now from research. So if you find yourself justifying, if you can hear yourself justifying, if you can feel, if you know that feeling when I talk about that niggly little voice in the back of your head, right? Let yourself off the hook. Remember that this is you doing what you think you need to do to stay safe. Give yourself some compassion. Right? So that's thing one, is just recognize what's going on here. Human motivation is to do things to feel a certain way. Your brain has decided that justifying drinking is safer than quitting because of all of the unknown and all of the fear that's on the other side. That's just how brains work. That's not your fault. So let yourself off the hook. That's thing one. Thing two is, once you recognize this justification, if you hear justifications, coming from your mind, if you hear justifications, if you hear yourself saying them. I have a very clear memory of talking to my wife, and I was telling her why I was stopping to buy alcohol on the way home. And at the same time, I was thinking, bullshit. Those two things were happening simultaneously, right? So you can become aware of this. So once you recognize this justification, and once you say, hey, that's okay, this is the way my brain operates, that is me being me, and that's totally okay, ask yourself this question instead of beating yourself up. Instead of spending time saying, what's wrong with me? How could I possibly do this? Ask yourself this instead. What am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? Because here's the thing, right? Our brains, as Annie likes to say, our brains are like Google, right? If you go to Google and you type in a question, you're going to get answers to that question, right? Our brains do the same thing. So normally what we do is we ask questions of like, man, how can I decide to keep drinking? Like, what are the reasons for me to keep drinking? What are the ways in which I could do this? And because I don't want to stop, right? You're going to get all types of answers to that. They're not necessarily going to be true. So if you ask a better question, right? If you say instead, what am I afraid of if I were to change my relationship with alcohol? You're going to get better answers. And here's the thing with this approach of saying like, what am I afraid of? You don't have to do anything about it right away, right? You don't have to immediately, when you get those answers back from those questions, you don't have to like go change, right? But you have a much, much clearer idea, a much better vision of what it is that's actually holding you back. And you'll notice that you can take these answers and you can go talk about them. So you can take these answers and maybe the answer, and I'll just use one that comes up for everybody. Like maybe the answer is like, man, I'm really afraid of how I'm going to deal with stress without alcohol. Okay. Let's talk about it. You have so much more power when you identify, like, I'm afraid of this and I want to figure it out. That, we can have a conversation about that. We can't have a conversation if you're justifying, right? If you're justifying and someone, you know, by definition, justification is sort of a defensive posture. If someone challenges you on that justification, you're more likely to double down on the justification than you are to go, you're right, right? So when you have something like, oh, I'm afraid of this, you can bring those questions here. You can bring what you hear to this group, to our new app if you join us over there. You can bring it to our programs if you're in any of those. Talk to the other members, talk to the coaches, right? Because that's how you can move forward. Now, again, just because you get an answer to that question doesn't mean that you have to do something about it to fix it right away. What this essentially means is that when you start to get present, when you start to say, man, what am I afraid of? Your brain's going to show you the things that you can work on to shift that relationship with alcohol. You can bring those fears out into the light. Because when it's out in the light, that's when you can talk about them and you can think about them. And it's through that, right? It's through that honest reflection, not the justifications. It's through that honest thinking that you allow yourself to actually be scared and you allow yourself to continue to move forward. When you ask yourself the question, what am I afraid of? Instead of allowing yourself to justify, you can take the fear that comes from that and you can use that as fuel to move forward. To say, I don't want to be afraid about this, right? Or to say, I have no idea. I have no idea how the hell to live my life without alcohol. That's what I'm afraid of, Scott. I remember one time when I was going through this process. This was well before I found This Naked Mind, and I was having, having another day one, and I had gone through with willpower. And I remember very clearly, I came home from work. It had been a long day. I was at a very stressful sort of point in my career. I came home super grouchy. I was like really grouchy with the kids, all of this stuff, right? And then my wife is like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I am upset because I'm not drinking." And she's like, but what is wrong, right? Like, you're home. You can relax. These are all very good points, by the way. You can relax, right? You can, enjoy your time here. And I remember saying to her, I am upset because I'm afraid that I don't know how to deal with this stress. I'm all wound up. I have no idea how to handle this. Whoa. Whoa. I look back on it now. I didn't realize it then, of course, but like that was really the beginning of me saying, wait a minute, I'm afraid. I'm not sure. I don't know. And all of those things are 100% okay. Because when you can get clear on these fears, when you can get present to those thoughts that you're having and those emotions that you're having, those things that are actually holding you back, then you can talk about them. You can come here. Again, you can come to this group. You can go to the new platform. If you're in any of our programs or anywhere else that you talk to people who've been through this process, you can have a conversation and you can say, hey, I'm really worried about doing this alcohol-free. And then you can actually start to work through it. I think one of the things that makes us so likely to justify isn't, it's fear, but the reason that we have that fear, it isn't because we're weak. It's because we literally don't know. It's because we've literally become convinced, and I'm not going to go into how all of this works, but for so many of us, our brains become convinced that we need alcohol to live our lives. And so, yes, it's scary. Yes, there's unknown. Yes, there's a ton of question marks. But isn't it better? Isn't it better to be at a place where you go, yeah, I have no idea how the hell to do this, but it's something I want to work on, versus, nope, there's no problem. There's no problem. I'm fine. Right? Isn't it better? Wouldn't you think it'd be better to be in the place where you're like, yes, I'm afraid of a lot of things and I'm not sure how this is going to go? Wouldn't it be better to be there? Because that gives you things you can work on. So that, friends, that's why honesty is so important. Because when we're not honest with ourselves, when we justify, we end up in a position where we can't do anything. There's nothing to do with a justification other than keep drinking, right? And then experience that cognitive dissonance. But when we can be honest and we can really dive into this, man, we can make such a big difference. And again, you don't have to do anything right away, right? Being honest with yourself that you need to make a change doesn't mean that you need to immediately put down the bottle. There are small steps here, right? Like I always say, watching this video is one of those small little things that you can do. So if you find yourself in this position, if you find yourself in this place where you are saying, you're recognizing yourself justifying, I want to ask you to first let yourself off the hook, because remember, your brain is doing what it's doing because it thinks it's protecting you. You are human. We have, in one of our programs, we have this thing, #BecauseHuman, right? You're doing this because human. So this isn't your fault. And number two, instead of asking, how can I justify my drinking? Ask yourself this: what am I afraid of? The answers you're going to get back are going to help you move forward. And you don't have to change right away. But now you know this, it feels a hell of a lot better to be in a place where you're like, I'm really afraid of how this is all going to work, but I'm curious, than to be in that place of cognitive dissonance. So that is what I had to say today. Leah says, while I'm drinking, I'm constantly afraid of getting cancer. I guess I must be more afraid of not drinking. That's messed up. Yes, totally. We don't look at it this way. We don't look at it this way, but this is really, I can tell you, I have literally coached thousands of people. That is what's going on, right? I mean, there's nuance and there's layers and all of that. So I don't mean to say that it's super duper simple, but the reality is, yes, right? What am I afraid of? I'm afraid of what it's like to be alcohol free. That's okay. You and everybody else. Allie says this couldn't have come at a better time. Well, I'm glad. I'm really glad. I hope that it's helpful for you. And Dodie knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly. So everybody, that is what I had for today. Honesty. Tell me what you think of this. If you're watching it on replay, tell me, is this you? Have you felt this before? I want to hear from you. So comment on the video. And if you haven't yet, join us on the free platform. It's over at thisnakedmindapp.com. It's a fantastic place, actually, to have these conversations, right? When you're like, hey, I'm afraid of this, that's a great place to go talk about it. So again, it's thisnakedmindapp.com. You can also get the app in Apple, the App Store on Apple or on Google Play. I hope you are all having a super fantastic Monday, and I will see you all soon. Take care.